Hello and welcome to today's zine workshop. If you're not sure what a zine is, you're in the right place because we're going to find out what a zine is and we're going to find out much, much more. So my name's Jude and I'm a librarian from Kirklees Libraries. And Kirklees Libraries are part of what we call the Living Knowledge Network. And today's event is part of a programme run in conjunction with the Living Knowledge Network. So the Living Knowledge Network holds an exhibition every year, and this year it's called Unfinished Business, A Fight for Women's Rights. So this event is linked to that. So what is the Living Knowledge Network? I'll just get some information up so you can have another look separately as well, either now or after we've run today's workshop. So the Living Knowledge Network is created by the British Library and is a UK-wide partnership of national libraries and public libraries. Together we share ideas and spark conversations and connections between libraries, our collections and our communities. It was created to explore new ways for libraries across the country to work as one. The network currently includes 20 public libraries and the British Library, the National Library of Scotland and the National Library of Wales. And you may have seen last week's super event that was called A Room of One's Own, I Wish. And that was another event that was run in conjunction with Unfinished Business, A Fight for Women's Rights exhibition. And that was Kirklees Library's writer-in-residence, Christina Longdon. And Christina Longdon talked about strong female characters who are in books that she really enjoys and strong female writers who've written books that she really enjoys. She also talked about the difficulties engaging with writing and I guess to some extent reading if you happen to be a woman from a working class background. Now you can catch up on that event if you'd like to by going to kirkleeslibraries.co.uk/writer-in-residence and you'll find lots of other events that Christina's run. I honestly, they're great, so it's definitely worth having a quick look. So previous years, Kirklees Libraries have held our events as part of the Living Knowledge Network in conjunction with the British Library in our library buildings. But due to the COVID-19 restrictions, we've moved it online instead. So in some ways, it was a bit of a disappointment, but I can tell you one real positive about all the libraries moving to do events and exhibitions online instead, and that's that we get to go and see events from loads of libraries across the whole of the UK. So you can see what Newcastle libraries are doing. You can see what, let me think of a Southern library, like some of the London libraries are doing, or libraries in Devon or Cornwall. So if you just go back to have a look at the Living Knowledge Network, what's on, you'll see lots of different events that you'll be able to engage with. So I'd like to now introduce the other two people who are on screen with me. So we've got Hannah, who's an apprentice for Kirklees Libraries, and we've got Cherry, who is also, she's a super guest scene maker. So we'll be hearing lots from both of those very shortly. And just before I hand over to Cherry, I'd like to just say if you've got any questions or comments at all, I'll just remove that banner, I won't be saying. If you've got any questions or comments during today's workshop, then just go to the chat box in wherever you're watching this, Twitter, Facebook, on YouTube, and those questions and comments will come straight over to us and we'll answer them as we go along. Right, so I'm going to hand over now. So I'm going to hand over to Cherry and I'm going to hand over to Hannah because I know Hannah would like to ask a couple of questions to start with to find out a little bit more about today's workshop and what on earth a zine is.
Yeah, so I'm here today to learn a little bit more about zine making. So would you be able to tell us where the idea originated from?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for kicking us off, Hannah, and thanks, Jude, for such a great introduction. It's really good actually having Hannah here today as someone who's super excited to start making zines, and hopefully if anything I'm talking about isn't really clear, Hannah can jump in and ask lots of questions. Yeah, so just to get us started, a zine, if you haven't seen one before, zines are, I'm holding one here in my hands, and they're typically handmade, photocopied or otherwise cheaply produced, small circulation, self-published booklets or pamphlets. So this one is made by an artist called Jean McEwen, who does a lot of work with community groups in Bradford. This one is, we've got kind of like handwritten pieces in here, drawings, I think some like printed text as well. So each page looks really different in this one. But zines generally, people have been self-publishing as far back as they've been writing. We start seeing the word zine used around the 1930s and 40s, mostly referring to sci-fi pamphlets and stories that weren't getting published elsewhere. There was a real explosion of zines around punk in the 70s and Riot Girl in the 90s, but that's really only part of the story. So these were kind of jumping off points for lots of other people. We see lots of zines that are made not just by individuals, but by groups of people as well. So it could be community groups or people getting together around a shared interest, all sorts of different things. The internet has made it easier for people to connect and share the stuff that they're making, but zines are probably just as popular now as they always have been. People do make zines as well to share information, stories, artwork, poetry, just about anything that you can think of, which can feel quite overwhelming if this is maybe your first step into the world of zines. The idea that they could be about whatever you want can feel like quite a lot. It might feel quite intimidating thinking about what your first zine might be about, or what you're interested in telling the world. So hopefully today we can just have a bit of a chat. I've got together some examples of a few different types of zines from the collection at Salford Zine Library, which I will talk a little bit more about as well, which is somewhere where I volunteer and one of the places that I really became involved in collecting zines and sharing zines. Yeah, so I've got some examples that I can show us as we go along.
Yeah, that's great.
Jude, you're on mute.
I didn't say. Oh, just tell me when I'm on mute, because I talk so much that I have to put myself on mute sometimes. My question was, can you remember what theme or topic your first zine was, Cherry? Because you said about that first zine, and I've never asked you that question.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. The first zines, I started making zines when I was a teenager, and since then my kind of motivation behind making them hasn't really changed very much. I definitely did just want to make friends, or was like desperately searching for people that were just into the same kind of music as me to start off with. And the first zines that I ever saw were things that I got sent in the post from pen pals, and later things that I would pick up at gigs, but it was all kind of focused around music. Yeah, and the first zine I ever made didn't have very many pages. It was called Cheesy Smash and Salad Cream, and it was reviews of just different bands that I liked, and I maybe made 3 copies of it. I think I photocopied it at the library. But the first zine I think I had that I really treasured was a music zine that I'd got from I just used to listen to John Peel on the radio, and he would read out, or people would send in zines, and then he would read out their address on the radio and say, send £1 to this address and they'll send you a zine. So that's kind of how I first made contact with zines. Yeah. Yeah.
What a lovely, yeah. And John Peel, like, I can't date him, but it must be about I don't know, maybe about 7 or 8 years, maybe longer, since he was on the radio. But he was,
yeah, it was
cultural icon, wasn't he, for music? You went to him quite a lot to hear new bands and passionate
Yeah.
about music
And
stuff.
this was kind of pre-internet, or like early days of the internet. So my early kind of exposure to zines kind of ran in tandem with like getting online for the first time and using music forums and chatting to people about bands and stuff that we were into. So it was kind of just like one inroad into sort of alternative culture, and one of the things that has stuck. So yeah, the zines I'm making now are maybe slightly more sophisticated, but maybe not actually. They're really similar to the ones I was making when I was 15.
Fantastic.
So
Wow.
how do you share the zines that you make? How do you get them around to different people?
That's a great question, Hannah. When I started making them, I would pretty much just make a few copies for friends. And I wasn't really thinking about, I suppose, distributing them any further afield than that. And over the years, I've kind of experimented with, I suppose, like what was available to me. So a lot of the time, that was photocopying, because it's the cheapest way usually to
Yeah.
print lots of copies of something. In the kind of mid 2000s, I was involved in a zine project called the Chapess, which was the first zine project that I'd been involved with, which was kind of a group project. So I would put a call out for different issues. People would send me things to put into the zine, and I would put it all together. So everyone would have a page or a couple of pages within the zine. And that was the first one I made that maybe had a bit of a further reach. And I started looking at how, I could make more copies of it. And kind of out of that, I started a zine distro, which started off as a shoebox full of zines, ended up as a website, meant that I could go around to zine fairs. But really, all that means is I would help to distribute other people's zines and my own zines. So a lot of the time, that was stuff that I'd made and stuff that had been made by people who were then involved with the zine projects I had on the go at any one time. So it was all very DIY. But with lots of help from lots of friends, it kind of grew into something a bit bigger.
What materials did you use to make them? Were they all made out of the same material, or did you use different ones each time?
Yeah, so I kind of changed my method a little bit. So I did start off doing, I still do a lot of collage, and we'll kind of we've got a little demo video we're going to watch in this session in a little while. And I have brought together some examples just of different sort of collage techniques. So you can make a zine completely by hand with scissors and glue. You might just make one copy of it. That's as legit as making 100 copies of something. The way I do it now, a lot of the time, is I will make single pages by hand. So this is just one of our examples that we're going to get to in a bit. So this is just a mixture of handwritten text and printed, sort of computer paper and just pictures from magazines. So I'll tend to still make a lot of my pages individually like this by hand, and then scan them in and put them together on the computer, because I have found it's easier to have a PDF saved on the computer, just to print from, or then to email to people, which is maybe kind of a far cry from the stuff I started off doing. So yeah, there are a few different ways you can go about doing it. What I'm going to share today is just like a few of the methods that I use, and like a few of the things it's definitely easy for us to all do at home at the moment. You don't need any special equipment at all. And there's lots of things you can use that you probably have lying around.
Cool.
Fantastic. So shall we jump to the little video about how to make a zine? Is that a good step into that now, Terry, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a
and
good
then
idea.
people can get a bit of an idea of how a zine is made. And I personally think it's quite easy, but like we were chatting a little bit earlier, and sometimes you watch it and you think, oh, I can do that, but then it's always good to have another watch of it, isn't it? And I know you've uploaded the video to YouTube as well, and you can just search for how to fold a
How
mini
to
zine.
fold Yeah.
that
If
right?
you
Yeah.
if you find me or Salford Zine Library on Twitter, there'll be a link there as well.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
one of the things we were thinking about today's session, because hopefully this is just quite a casual chat and people can sort of jump in with any of their questions. But yeah, so the video is a little demo of how to make a little mini zine. This is just a blank piece of paper folded into a tiny zine. So particularly if this is the first time you've come across zines and you just want to give it a go, these ones can be a really good way to sort of just get your ideas together. Even if you do want to follow the video and fold one of these up today, it could just be that you write some notes as you're listening to us talking. Yeah, so if we could watch the video, and then I've got a few examples of some different types of zines as well. So this is just one way of doing it.
brilliant. So we'll get sharing the video now. Just bear with me 1 second while I get that uploaded.
Great, thanks, Jude.
Okay.
For scale, this is a sheet of A4 paper. Most zines are A5 booklets like this, which you can see are made up of folded A4 sheets. So this one's been stapled, super simple. But there are lots of different ways of folding your zines. There isn't really a right or a wrong way to do it. This just happens to be one of the easiest. What we're going to do today is fold a mini zine from one sheet of A4 paper. And when it's finished, it's going to look a little bit like this one. So you see you've got your pages there. And when it unfolds, you'll see that's just one sheet. So these are a really great place to start. Especially if you do want to make copies of your zine cheaply, either using your printer at home or the photocopier at the library. They're also a great place to start if this is the first zine you've made, or you're not really sure what to make your zine about. So this could be a rough draft of something else. It could be just a fun way to gather some of your ideas together. It can be whatever you want. So that's what we're going to do today. All you're going to need for this is your piece of A4 paper and a pair of scissors. We're going to start by folding this sheet in half lengthways. So it looks like this. Then we're going to fold it in half again. Try and be as neat as you can, but don't worry too much because we will have a chance at the end to neaten up any of these folds. Then we're going to fold it in half one more time. And it'll look like that. Then we're going to unfold it. And you will see that you've got this neat grid with your 8 pages. We're going to fold this in half like this. And then with our scissors, we're just going to make a cut from this point on the right hand side to this midpoint here. I'll show you what that looks like. So that's how it'll look while it's still folded up. And when you open it up, you'll see you've got this slit in the middle of your sheet of paper. Now what I like to do is hold it like this and let one side sort of drop over my fingers. So you'll see it makes this diamond shape in the middle. It looks a bit like a mouth. That's what you're looking for. Now, if the paper that you're using is quite thin, like mine, I'm using printer paper, you can gently push these two sides together and you will see it kind of starts to fold itself. So that's the kind of shape you're looking for. When you get to that point, you want to just set it down on the table. And what we're doing here is just lining up these corners, and I'm just going to press down on those folds again. Make sure they're all nicely lined up. Each of these pages. So all I'm doing is just going over those folds. And one more. And there we have our 8-page zine ready to be filled.
That was great. Sorry, I realised my microphone was on my head while I was sitting back and watching the video. That was great, Cherry. Thank you. And I hope some people found that useful. Either did it as they went along. I got so far, and then so I've got my folds in, but now I need to get some scissors. So wow, what it just I love the way that out of one A4 piece of paper you can create a book. I just think it's almost magic, really, you know, and
you can do it with any size paper as well, as long as it's kind of vaguely a rectangle to start off with. Yeah, just experiment with that method on whatever you can get your hands on, because there's quite a lot you can do with it. I've got a couple here as well that are more like comics. So this is just made from one sheet. It's just a 1-page comic like that, and it's just one piece of card. So even if you like the idea of making something with one sheet, it doesn't necessarily have to be a tiny little zine like that. So that one's just a 1-page comic like that. And this one also is a comic that unfolds into an A3 poster.
oh wow.
So obviously when we can get back into libraries and you can get your hands on that photocopier, most of them will do A3 printing as well.
Yeah.
So this could just be the first thing you make, and you know, your imagination can run wild a little bit after that. So there's lots of things you can do with just a few sheets of paper.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at Hannah to see if Hannah's got any questions right now, because otherwise I'm gonna make a comment.
Are those the ones that you made, Cherry? Because they look really good.
So these are made by 2 friends of mine. This one is made by Paul Sammer. I can share some links online after this. This is great. Yeah, so they're both comics, actually, the first 2 I've shared. I mean, I would maybe call both of these zines as well, but there's no real like hard or fast rules. So yeah, generally people use zines however they need to. And then this one is made by Bridget Alva, who's another amazing artist, who also runs a zine library down in Kent. So I will share links of like all of these people's work as well, because I've got a few different things to share.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Well, I think you kind of answered what I was going to ask about the no rules, really. So I think it seems that with a zine, it's quite flexible. It can be like a graphic novel, it could be cartoons, poems, songs, all sorts, drawings. And I think, so what you've just said about no rules is you can.
And even as you start making your zine, you might not have really decided what you're going to put in it. It might kind of evolve as you're making it. I think for me, zines have always been a way to connect with people and to make friends, which is something that's really central to zine culture as a whole. The idea that there could be something that you feel really passionately about, or something that you just really enjoy that you want to share with other people. And zines are just like a perfect kind of little vehicle for that, to put that out into the world, especially if you're someone who doesn't see your experiences reflected in mainstream media. Zines can be a really great way to get creative with some of that frustration and try and kind of create this alternative media, and kind of make the stuff we feel like we're not getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see them coming back as a trend in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things. Every few years there'll be kind of articles saying zines are making a resurgence, and everyone kind of rolls their eyes, because I think they just never really went away. I think, you know, as technology kind of evolves, there's all sorts of different things happening, but I think they're just one of those things that has always been here and always will be. I think in this last year, we have seen, obviously lots of us now grappling with the idea of connection and really thinking about communication in a way that's really central to our well-being, especially when we're not able to spend time with other people in the way that we would like to. And I think that that kind of thread of connection that does run through zine culture, and a lot of this stuff is really vital. It feels very vital when you're making it or when you're reading something that someone else has made. It can be really, really powerful. So there's lots of kind of obvious links to a lot of the stuff we're talking about today, with letter writing and mail art and scrapbooking and journaling as well.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't connected about the journaling. That zines are a great medium for journaling, because you might do a zine a day or a zine a month, or
Exactly.
and you might
Yeah.
end up with your own like zine library or something, mightn't you, in a shoebox for
Yeah.
2021 or something. There's all these kind of possibilities, and then when we're all out of all these restrictions, you might be able to then copy them and send them to other people, or say,
Absolutely.
did
Yeah.
you
So a
do
zine.
this in February or whatever? Or,
A
yeah.
zine doesn't have to be something that you want to share with anyone. It might be a very
No.
private thing.
Yeah,
And I think that, that freedom to just do whatever you want with it. You're the boss, you're the editor, you're making all the choices about this zine, which is what makes it really exciting. I've got one here that
brilliant.
is made by an artist, Selena Day from Manchester. And this is a doodle diary. So there's just doodles from every
Wow.
day. Like every page looks amazing.
Gosh.
And this is a year in Selena's life in drawings. So it could be something that you work on for a long time and then decide to share at some point in the future.
What a
I
lovely
feel
idea.
like all the zines I've shown so far are quite like image based, like lots of drawings. But yeah, I've got a few more here. This is one that was made by the activist group Sisters Uncut. So this is a zine that was made by a group of people. And in here you've kind of got a copy of like their manifesto, information on how to get involved and different things that they're campaigning for. So this is not super recent, this is from a couple of years ago. But yeah, this maybe looks a bit different inside because it's very easy to read information, which is one of the other things that zines are great for, like getting that information out and into people's hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel that zines have played a role in sort of both raising awareness, but also, saying, have a look at this if you want to know more about? I'm particularly thinking about Unfinished Business, Fight for Women's Rights, and obviously, even before the zine was defined, there were pamphlets, weren't they? That might have been produced, and they didn't call them zines then, but I know that some research that I've been looking at to do with the abolitionists in the 1800s, and there were pamphlets distributed about, social reform, ending slavery, suffragettes, and I guess in some ways they were zines, weren't they? They were called pamphlets.
Absolutely, yeah.
They were just a way of communicating in a mass printed way that you could distribute information out and about. And then you said that maybe the 30s, that's when they were probably named as zines. And
Yeah, it's maybe when we first start seeing this word, but yeah, as far back as we've had printed stuff, like people have been making, like taking things into their own hands. And you're right, like this history of kind of radical print is what makes zines so exciting, in that you could make your first zine today and you instantly cement yourself within that history. And it's really exciting to then be part of that, I suppose, in a way. I think that zine making is political, regardless of what it is that you're putting in that zine. You're making the choice to put it out into the world yourself, and you have total creative control over that, which I think is what makes zines really special, and what like keeps people coming back to them. There is just something really yeah, powerful and tactile about them.
And I guess they're quite so, like at Salford Zine Library, I know you haven't talked too much about them yet, but you said that it's quite it's a collection of zines, so people can look at them. Am I right? They can look at them within the zine library. So in some ways, it's a way for people to access things quite
Hmm.
easily, isn't it? In a way that
Yeah,
don't have to go and find something too much. You can just have a flick through and something catches your eye, like at the zine fairs. You can walk
yeah,
around stalls when we can do them. You can walk around stalls and, you might see an illustrator or a message or a style of text that you just go, oh, I really want to have more of a look at that. And then it connects you and it means it's quite accessible, isn't it, in that way, I
yeah,
suppose?
absolutely. And I think this, yeah, like just absolute love that's at the heart of all of this stuff. Like people are so generous in sharing their experience. I think all of us who've made zines have benefited from like reading about other people's lives in a way that we maybe weren't hearing those stories in other places.
Oh, yeah.
So I think a lot of us, yeah, do feel like we want to pass that on as well. And if we can, yeah, just make life a bit easier or more fun for anyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Like zines are one of the places where that kind of comes through as well.
Yeah, like you were saying about, it could be a subject that you're particularly interested in, like maybe a musician or maybe
Mhm.
some type of clothing or gardening. I have cars. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
by sort of, putting a call out on social media to say, oh, I'm creating this scene. Is anyone out there who's
mhm.
interested in a certain, I don't know, quite niche type
Yeah,
of dress? And then, um,
yeah. The
you
more
might
the stranger
yeah,
sounding, the better.
yeah, and you connect and you go, "Oh, there's, like, hundreds of people who like the same things as me,"
Yeah,
they might be in Japan or New Zealand or next
I
door.
think if there's, yeah, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I wonder if there's a zine about XYZ, get on Google after this and just yeah, have a little search and kind of delve into what comes up.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, someone will have made a zine about the thing that you love, and if they haven't, then you should definitely make that
Yeah,
zine.
exactly. Hannah, did you have any other questions that you'd already been thinking about, or should we ask Cherry a bit about how to actually collage and things like that?
Should we have a look at the collage? How we
Mhm.
collage them?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. I was just going to say a little bit about Salford Zine Library because I
Oh, yes,
realised
of
we've
course.
mentioned that and I haven't really said what that is. Um, so Salford Zine Library is a collection that started off life in Salford, and for the last few years has been in central Manchester. So it's run by a really small group of volunteers. It started in 2010 and it started just from a personal collection that was in the artist studios at Islington Mill. So since it moved into the centre of Manchester, we kind of had a purpose-built space within Nexus Art Cafe. So it was open. It's strange to talk about this in the past tense now,
Mm,
but it
I
was
know.
open 7 days a week whenever the cafe was open. And it was quite unique as a zine collection because it was open access more so than a lot of other collections that are maybe within different institutions, or this one you could just walk in. It wasn't a lending library, so you could just spend time there and read the zines. Yeah, just a really magical place. So we currently hold around 2,000 zines, and that's all made up from donations over the years. So it's a real mix of kind of current stuff that's been made yeah, in the last 10 years or so, and some older zines that have been donated from people's collections. So we have got a few things that kind of date back to the late 60s and 70s, but it's mostly zines that have been made within the last 10 years. So within that, we've got a lot of stuff that is local to Manchester, and yeah, quite big. Yeah, a lot of stuff within that, a lot of football zines, lots of LGBT zines, lots of zines, which are generally kind of personal zines, which maybe read more like yeah, like letters, I guess. So we've got loads of them. We're kind of in free fall at the moment, like a lot of people, because the venue we're at closed down due to the pandemic. So the best way at the moment to find out more about the Zine Library and yeah, hear about the latest stuff, I suppose, when we pick up somewhere else, is to find us on Twitter or have a look at our website. We'll be kind of posting updates on there. Yeah, so I got involved with Salford Zine Library when I moved to Manchester in 2012. I live in Huddersfield now, so I'm kind of like the remote arm of Salford Zine Library. But yeah, pre-pandemic, a lot of the stuff we were doing was taking selections of the collection round to different museums, libraries, schools, and different events, and really helping people to engage with that material, because we've kind of got so much there. Yeah, we just want as many people to benefit from it as possible.
Because that was the plan for us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Way back when we had our first conversation, which was probably February or March 2020, and we were hoping to have a small zine fair with a few zine makers. And Cherry very kindly said that she'd bring a few items from Salford Zine Library for us to look at while everybody to look at when they came to the zine fair, and maybe incorporate them into an exhibition that we were doing. So it doesn't mean that's come to an end either. That's something that will still be, fingers crossed, hopefully doing at some point within the library setting, because I think it's such a great relationship. Zine fairs and libraries seem to coexist very, very nicely, I think.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I agree. If you are watching this and you're thinking, wow, what's a zine fest? I would love to know more about that. Definitely. Yeah, take a look on the Twitter, have a look at the stuff that we're sharing through Salford Zine Library. And there's lots of accounts. I mean, especially over the last year, lots of places that maybe were running zine fests, lots of things have gone online in different ways. Yeah, whether that's people uploading PDFs of zines that you can access online, or people organizing kind of online events and kind of zine hangouts and workshops. There's all sorts of different things popping up. So yeah, definitely have a look if any of that has kind of sparked something in you, and yeah, you want to know more about it.
Lovely. I'm looking at Hannah again, just wondering if you've any other questions that you've got. I've just got one comment. Well, I've got a comment that's come in, which is from Salma BA Academy, and she's just said, fabulous.
Oh, lovely.
So that's always nice. Maybe she'll tell us a little bit more about what's fabulous, whether it's inspired you or anything to go off and get making. Sorry, Hannah, I interrupted them.
What's been your favourite zine to make?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the ones I've enjoyed making the most over the last few years have been the group zines I've made. So I haven't got a copy of it here, but one of the zines that I make is called Grub, which is about food. And I put a little call out, usually on Twitter or my website, asking people to contribute recipes, stories, all sorts of things, and then I put it together. And that's probably been the most fun. I think that's one of the ones I've met the most different people through, or it started some really exciting conversations.
Everybody likes grub, don't they?
Exactly.
We all
Yeah,
have something to say about it.
It's a very good starting point for bringing together like some of those stories. The zine, this is actually like probably the most recent zine I made, which is a tiny little one-page zine, because suddenly, without access to a photocopier, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have a go at using my printer at home. I don't think it could really manage to print off a whole zine, but I know I can do a little one-page zine. So this is one that I actually made about doing online workouts during lockdown, and it was kind of just the stuff that I wanted to write in a letter to friends, so I put it in a little zine so I could just print them out and send them. So that's probably the most recent one I made, and that was fun. Kind of, yeah, a whole
Yeah. Are you
different
able
reason.
to open that right up, Cherry, so we can see it
Yeah.
as it's been made? Is it?
So this one, it's mostly writing. I wrote it on the computer
Oh,
and
cool.
printed it out.
It looks so professional as well, doesn't it? And I love the different sizes of text, and it's a real good. You just feel that's one of the other things you can do to make it a bit more engaging or energetic, can't you? You can change the
Yeah,
text and
and I
font
think
size.
it is totally down to what you kind of like the look of. So when I
Yeah,
started making zines, because I would always photocopy them in black and white because it was the cheapest way to make them, I
yeah,
didn't
of
really think
course.
about it
Yeah,
that much. But I love printing things in black and white, and I think I would always now choose to do that over color. So yeah, a few of these little examples I've got here of just collaged pages. So this is just some text that I printed out, and the background is just a kind of rubber stamp on coloured paper. But when it's printed out in black and white, that just does it for me. That's what I want it to look like. So I think there is some real excitement in, yeah, picking out the things that you think look good. It could be that you make a zine and you want to print it in colour, and that feels really vital to how
yeah,
you've
yeah.
laid it out. That's cool. But for me, it's definitely black and white, and the things I'm drawn to. So these are two little pages that I started making that are just sort of a combination of so handwritten text, typed text, drawings, little kind of bits that I've cut out of magazines. And when that's scanned in black and white, this is my lovely spread that I've got.
Gosh.
And I think that's kind of, yeah, I just love when you scan things in, you do sort of, you gain some texture, and you maybe lose some things. Yeah, for me, that's what's really exciting.
Yeah.
But so much of it is just down to like what excites you and what you think looks good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are they all hand drawings that you've done, or do you do them using Photoshop or something?
So a lot of them are like, I use a lot of clip art. So like these cups here, that's clip art. I save lots of clip art on the computer and then print them out and then cut them out. But there's quite a lot of look out for magazines that you can get a hold of. Lots of magazines that are made for crafting and things that maybe have copyright free images that you can use. That one's a drawing by Bridget, who made one of the zines that I showed before. This is just a little bit of clip art. That's just a picture I've cut out of a magazine.
Oh.
Yeah, so just always be on the lookout. Once you start making zines, and especially if you get into collage, you will start looking at things with kind of a different eye. This is like the inside of an envelope, which is just like a gorgeous texture and pattern. So there's all sorts of things. What else have I got? So old Christmas cards, birthday cards, anything like that. Newspapers, if you get them, if you come into contact with them. Maps, always good for making backgrounds, because a lot of the zines I make like have a lot of writing in them. I mean, zines don't have to have writing in them. It could be all drawings if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But because the ones I make tend to have a lot of writing in, I quite like making like a background like this one, and then sticking the text over the top. But it's totally up to you. This is another little one just with the text kind of stuck on top of a picture from a magazine.
Gosh. And then
Yeah, so if you are
Oh, sorry. I get carried. I was just thinking, yeah, by doing them in black and white, it sort of adds an extra dimension to them, almost, doesn't it? From being a something you've cut out of a magazine, it kind of loses the magazine, but gains some kind of extra, I don't know, depth to it, or extra
totally,
becomes an object or a background or another part of the art, doesn't it? That is a bit different. Yeah, I like that.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously things are kind of limited at the moment in terms of what we can do at home, but if you do have access to a printer, and printing things in black and white at home is maybe going to be the way to go. You can experiment with putting coloured paper into the printer, or I don't know if I've got a coloured one here. This one's got a coloured cover, so just printing in black and white on a coloured piece of paper will give it a whole different feel as well. Yeah, so there's lots of different things that you can kind of experiment with.
So do you have like a big box that you just put everything in and go,
I
I
do, yeah.
keep that, and then it becomes
Yeah.
this
So
sort of,
some of the things I've got here, I tend to be drawn to lots of things with patterns on. So anything with a
okay,
pattern,
yeah,
any leaflets that come through the door,
oh,
or
oh yeah, all the
no,
jumper
any
nail
bits and
sort of
pieces,
stuff.
letters from the doctor, all sorts of things that might have something on. You can keep the text and cut the letters out if you
Yeah.
wanted to. I love rubber stamps. So rubber stamps are something
Oh,
that I'm really enjoying using at the moment. But yeah, whatever it is that you love, you could make a zine and you could write it all out by hand. You don't need anything else.
oh,
So if you just had a piece of paper and a pen, you could make a zine today.
yeah,
Mhm.
wow. And I'm sure that's what Hannah and I are going to do.
Yeah, we'll have to have a go.
I'll bring us all back in because I'm just conscious suddenly we're at
What
10
time
to
is it?
12. We're at 10 to
Oh,
12.
okay.
I know, crazy. Um, yeah. So, Hannah, anything else from you that you're thinking of after we've seen that? Are you thinking of making a zine? Have you
Yeah,
decided what to make it of? Or
yeah, it's definitely inspired me to have a go. I was just wondering, you seem like you're quite an arty person, Cherry. I was wondering if you'd done anything like illustration at college or university or anything.
Yeah, well, not illustration particularly, but I studied art kind of through college and then went to art school as well. I mean, the only time I really stopped making zines was when I was at art school, because
Hmm.
it wasn't seen as what you go to art school to do, which
Yeah.
maybe things have changed a little bit. But a lot of the workshops I do now um, are with people who haven't had any particular training. You don't need any particular kind of artistic skill to make a zine.
No,
You do just need to have an idea.
just be
And if there is
creative.
something, yeah, if there is something you fancy having a go at, like maybe you don't feel like you are an illustrator or a writer necessarily, but you want to give it a go, like zines are a great place to do it because you can have a go and just see what feels good or like what you enjoy doing. There's no real stakes. If you make it and you don't like it, you can throw it in the bin and start something else, which is really exciting.
And because we're all going for like a lockdown walk or something like that, you can always just say list what you saw on the walk or how many
Yeah.
steps you did or what the sound was like. It could be anything, couldn't it? Or in the
Mhm.
room that you might be in, you could just have a look around and describe. I don't know. I've got a bird cage randomly hanging on my wall. I'm not even gonna like.
Yeah, yeah,
I got a bird cage recently, and but it's not got anything in it, and I'm not going to have a bird, but I could, draw the bird cage or do a little sketch or write about it. It's just so open, isn't
absolutely.
it, for
Yeah,
anybody to just have a go and a little, and have it as another thing that you can do when you're thinking, I wonder what to do today. You can
yeah,
just that
definitely.
piece of paper doesn't even have to be a brand new piece of paper. You can find something that's already been used, can't you? And have a
Yeah,
go.
whatever you need it to be, a zine can be there.
Yeah, yeah. So, have you thought of a theme, Hannah, for a zine?
I quite like the idea of doing food. I mean, we all love food, don't we?
I was
Mhm.
thinking that as well. Yeah, yeah, and you can do a little sketch of some food, or you can just write it down, can't you? Or,
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
enjoy cooking and baking, so that could be something really good to put
Oh,
to a zine.
cool. That would be really good because we have
Yeah,
loads of cooking and baking books as well. So we
Yeah,
could always link it to a book in our collection, I guess, can we? Or like check out the collection a bit like you did for the yoga, when you were doing the yoga event as well,
yeah, I've
Hannah.
just
And you did a
yeah,
lovely little booklet that could potentially have been a zine, couldn't it?
yeah.
So
amazing.
that's wonderful. Yeah, yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to say, Cherry, before we sort of round things up and talk about
Um,
books that we've got?
Yeah, not really. It's gone so quickly, hasn't it? If anyone is watching and just like wants to ask any more questions, wants to get in touch, the best way to find me or Salford Zine Library is probably on Twitter, and there you'll find links to our website and different things. But absolutely, get in touch. Send me a tweet if you want to. If you have any questions, if today's like inspired you to make something, or you've made something that you just want to share, definitely get in touch. That would be ace.
Yeah, that's really cool. Lovely. So let's have a quick recap. So it's been absolutely wonderful finding out about how to make a zine, about what a zine is, because I'm sure there's lots of people who are thinking, zine, what on earth is that? And now you've told us. And also we've got the lovely how to fold a mini zine, which you can access on YouTube. And what we can do is put a link when we upload this to our website, which will be kept there as a resource for people to watch again. So if people go to kirkleyslibraries.co.uk, they'll be able to watch again, and we'll be able to just put a link to the YouTube video as well. So that'll be another way that you can rewatch it and have another go at kind of making the zines and things. We've also got a few books that we've selected on our catalogue. So if you go to kirkleys.overdrive.com, you'll see a small selection of books that we've collated that we thought were just a little introduction to making zines. So this one, which is a collection of zines that have been made by people. And also there's how to collage, how to draw. And there's one about making things collage out of textiles, which is something that I hadn't actually been thinking about, but textiles and that kind of tactile element of zines is always something that you can think about. So we've not only have we got a small collection, a curated collection to go with today's workshop, but if you just go through the collection or put art and drawing or collage in the search box in Overdrive, you'll find many, many, many books about that. So thank you so much, Cherry. That's been amazing. And I'm sure we'll see you again once, you know, we're out of the restrictions, and we'll be looking at doing other things, and hopefully we'll be able to do some kind of hands-on workshop where we can all get involved as well.
Absolutely.
And I just want to mention another event that we've got going on that is connected to Unfinished Business, Fight for Women's Rights, the Living Knowledge Network, British Library. And that's going to be sometime in February. We've just got to double confirm it before I give you a date. So the best way to find out about our next event is to go to kirkleyslibraries.co.uk, or find us on Twitter with Kirkleys Libraries, or on Facebook, Kirkleys Libraries. We've got In Conversation with 4 women composers. They're composers, but they're also musicians and artists. So it's going to be super excited. They all studied at Huddersfield University, so they've all got that in common. And I think it's going to be really great. You'll find out about how they got into composing. You'll hear a little bit of their music. There'll be a general chat about what it's like to be a female composer in 2020, 2021. And hopefully we'll see you there. So that's free. It'll be streamed live on all our usual channels, which is Facebook, Twitter, and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I was thinking Instagram there, but we don't do live on Instagram yet. But we do upload videos, etc., onto Instagram. So, okay, so I think we shall. I feel really sad to say. I think we shall leave it there, because it's just been so wonderful hearing about zines and how open they are for people to have a go, and how they enable people to connect. Again, a really important thing that is now. And, you know, it might be that you get to post a zine to your neighbour who, you know, maybe isn't out and about and talking to people, or to your great granny, or to your friend. Or you might not post it like you say, Cherry, you might just decide to make it for yourself just because you can, which is wonderful. It's really, really lovely tool to have. Oh, I'll just see, we've got another quick comment in. So that I'll just bring that up from Julian Bradley. I think this is a great one to finish on. This was so good, really useful and enjoyable. thanks to everyone involved. Yeah.
Oh,
That was so
amazing.
nice. So I think it's just up to us to end on that and just to say thanks again, Cherry. Thanks, Hannah, for your amazing contribution. The questions were great and they covered so much. And we just need to say bye. Oh,
Yeah,
Lovely.
it's
Thank you
been
both so
brilliant.
much. It's been a
thank
lovely
you.
chat.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye for
Yeah.
now.